Hello everyone, welcome back. I think the project we are going to talk about today, everything you need is already in place. MRT at your doorstep, good schools nearby, and everyday convenience within reach. You can have your Heartlander coffee at 150, your kopi C kosong, or you can have your atas coffee at 8 or $9 from a 5 minutes drive away. And you also have the biggest park connector in Singapore, the East Coast Park. I think it's no surprise that this project has already been quite highly anticipated, especially since the announcement of the Bayshore Transformation. So today, we are going to break down Vela Bay, the first private condominium in the upcoming Bayshore Precinct, positioned along the Upper East Coast with 70% of the sea-facing units. And as always, we will always start with the project fundamentals, including the pricing and layout analysis. Then we'll take a step back to evaluate the Bayshore transformation, compare it against similar estates, and understand the key similarities and differences. We will also assess the alternatives in today's market, the implications of missing this launch, and ultimately whether this project fits as a buy, wait, or skip. So where is Vela Bay? This Vela Bay is over here, just doorsteps away from Bayshore MRT, and this encompasses the entire Bayshore transformation. So if we look at it, this is where Vela Bay will stand. So any of the sea-facing units will have a good piece of the view towards the sea. So if we zoom out and compare the stretch of sea-facing units, this is where Vela Bay is. From the developments from Bayshore towards Tanjong Ru, we can see that the coastal green buffer is actually significantly wider. So what it means in this area is that buyers typically need to go higher floors to achieve a more open and unobstructed sea view. And this naturally translates into higher entry prices, not just because of the premium for higher floor units, but also because developments in these areas tend to have larger unit sizes and higher overall quantum. So this thin stretch or thin piece of greenery is important. And for Vela Bay, the sea-facing units, you do not need to exactly go to the highest in order to enjoy the entirety of the sea view. And the other concern that some may have is actually the Long Island project, which may affect the sea view in future. I think this is a very, very valid consideration. However, it's also important to understand that based on the current indications, the planning, design and implementation of Long Island is actually expected to take over decades. So in the near to medium term, any impact on the view is unlikely to be immediate. As we move on to the project information, the developer for this project is Singhai Yi, and the architects are P&T consultants. The site area is 10,497 square meter with a plot ratio of 4.52. There are a total of 515 units with 2 blocks of 31 stories. And out of this, because this Bayshore Precinct will be a car light zone, so there will only be 50% of the car lots provision. So in terms of the site plan, I think one thoughtful aspect of the design by Singhai is how it has orientated the towers. So this is where the sea view is. So you can see most of the units all have the sea views. And for the units that do not have the sea views, they will be able to have either the pool facing view or you are facing towards the landed in the Lucky Heights area. Actually, all the facing has its pros and its cons. And in order to achieve this, what the developer has done is they did a slight tilt, so there will be units facing towards the northwest and northeast and southeast and southwest. So in terms of the sea view, you'll most likely have a southeast or southwest view depending on the unit type and the size that you're interested in. In terms of the unit mix, this is where Singhai Yi has actually taken a different approach. So nowadays, we see that many developers are focusing heavily on the 2-bedroom units and above. So for Vela Bay, they have actually dedicated a stack of 1-bedroom plus study all the way up to the 5-bedroom and penthouse units. I think this has created a much more diverse offering, catering not just to families but also to singles, investors, and even multi-generation households. So if we look at it, in terms of the 1 and 2 bedroom, we have a total of about 40%, and then another 50% catered for the 3 and 4 bedroom, and finally about 5% or 26 units of 5 bedroom. So in terms of the unit mix, they are providing quite a variety, and in terms of the sizes, these are sizes that are now accepted based on the harmonization effect. So if we moved on based on this pricing, how do these prices match up? Let us just take a step back and look at how much did Singhai pay for this plot of land. So Singhai got this land at 1388 per square foot per plot ratio, and the next bidder actually bidded $11 lesser. And out of all this, there are a total of 8 bids for this Bayshore plot. So what it means is actually the developers are hopeful for this plot. And amongst them, there are 3 of them that are actually willing to bid at 1,003 and above. And in terms of the layman numbers, right, if we are looking at 1388, usually we take 1388 times 2 to get the approximate average. So we are expecting Vela Bay to be averaging about 2750 to 2800 per square foot. And so what it translates to, if we look at 2008 onwards, we are expecting the 1 bedroom to start from about 1.3 million, the 2 bedroom from about 1.6 million, 3 bedroom from about 2.4 million, and the 4 bedroom from 3.2 million. And so as we look at it later in the layout, the key is whether these are the kind of quantum that is accepted in the current market and whether it is safe to buy into these prices. Let us look at the floor plan analysis. The floor plan that we have currently is the official floor plan of the showflat units. So for the 2 bedroom premium, we are looking at 64 square meters, 689 square feet. So in order to do a visualization, we have actually AI generated some of the floor plan. So do ponder us if there's any mistake. Always refer to the official floor plan. As you enter, I think what the developer has done well is actually they gave you an L-shaped kitchen while keeping it to 2.8 meter. So you actually have ability to create a partition, which is what they have done in the show flat, to create a partition to do a proper living and dining area. So there you can put your dining area followed by your living area, and you feel that the place is still spacious enough. And in terms of the shape, it's dumbbell layout to maximize the efficiency. So I think this is a very, very good layout. And for this, the entry price we are looking at is about 1.9 to 2 million. So as we move to the 3 bedroom, 96 square meter, 1033 square feet, there is a little bit of wastage at the foyer area. What you can do to maximize the area is actually put some storage. And as you enter the house, on your left is the kitchen. In this area, you can use it as a utility area and then still have enough space for a household shelter and a WC. And as you enter into the dining area, you have a proper partition dining and living area with very good sized bedrooms. In terms of the master, it's about 12 square meter. So what the developer has done slightly differently from other projects is actually, if you notice when you go down to the show flat, the common toilets are a little bit smaller. So they are trying to build space into other areas to maximize whatever square feet that you're paying for. So do keep a lookout when you're going down to the show flat. And for this 1033 square feet, right, the stack that is actually facing the southeast. So remember we talked about the thin strip of the greeneries. Actually, this southeast one cuts diagonally across. So this will be one of the better views with a morning sun. So I think this will be a premium stack and this will probably be a little bit more pricey. And then we move on to the 5 bedroom, 147 square meter, 1582 square feet. So 1582, very, very good size. I think what they have done well for this layout is actually they have introduced a junior master. They have also given you a additional option of another junior master. So if you have 2 kids, your kids won't complain. Or if it's multi-generational living, you can have your parents over here and then your eldest kid over here, while not compromising on the space because you have a wide portrait of 4.15 meters. Why a wide portrait is important? Because as you enter from the private lift, you have a natural demarcation of your dining area as well as the living area. And in terms of the balcony, right, there is sufficient depth if you choose to actually push some things out. For example, having your dining area out. But with this white portrait, there's actually no need to because it's already naturally demarcated for you. Now that we have looked at the micro, the unit, the layout, the efficiency, let's take a step back from the project itself. What actually drives the long-term potential in the area and what's actually happening in the Bayshore area? So if we look at the Bayshore Transformation, the key is this introduction of 10,000 homes into this area with 30% allocated for private housing. So there's about 3,000 units. In this area, there is actually going to be a future integrated development at the Bedok South MRT and also a transit priority corridor. This corridor over here is actually designed to prioritize public transport and active mobility, which features dedicated bus-only lanes, wider sheltered pedestrian walkways, and dedicated cycling path. This area will also connect seamlessly to the Round Island Road, which is about 150 km of park connector, and also the future 15 km green corridor linking East Coast Park to the Changi Beach. So this area will support the car-like lifestyle that's envisioned, where residents can rely less on driving and more on public transport, walking, or even cycling. And this will have a lot of amenities because the main street will be lined with F&B options and amenities. So in terms of the Bayshore Transformation, Vela Bay being the first plot, we are expecting another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 plots. Whether it's going to be a BTO or a private, we do not know, but this for sure will be the Bedok South Integrated Development. So you are anticipating that future projects, whether the land bid will be lower or higher, we do not know, but we expect further developments to occur in the upcoming years. So one thing to do is actually, how do we compare this Bayshore Transformation to something that's relatively similar? So what we can actually look at is actually, is it a repeat of the Bidadari transformation? Because nowadays, a lot of the $1 million HDBs are coming from the Woodleigh Bidadari area. So is it really same or is there differences? What Bidadari has done, it was launched in 2015, delivering about 9,000 homes across the period. So 2015 plus 4 to 5 years of build time, followed by another 5 years to MOP, we see that units started selling about 2024 onwards. And actually, this translates to the condo developments. And we see that the profits for this development are fairly substantial. So let's give an example. We look at Park Colonia. Park Colonia, these are the recently transacted units. 4th March 2026, this unit is a 4-bedroom, bought in at 2.34 million, sold at 3.5 million. More than $1 million in profit. And for the 3-bedroom, 936 square feet, transacted on 2nd of March, bought in at 1.547 million, sold at 2.3. And for the 2-bedroom, 570. These are all level 1. Bought in at 982,000, sold at 1.26. So we can see that there's a translational effect into the private condominiums because HDB upgraders are able to support these developments in the Woodleigh area. One key difference is the new HDB classification system, and Bayshore is affected. And the new changes are standard, plus, and prime. So what are the differences? Standard flats are the most common HDB type, typically located in the non-central area. So they will come with 5 years MOP and minimal resale restrictions, which allows greater flexibility. For plus flats, they are of course in more attractive locations and come with additional subsidies. They carry a 10-year MOP with tighter resale conditions, including subsidy clawbacks. This includes the income ceiling of 14,000 for plus flat resale buyers. And finally, prime flats, the most subsidies, best located in the central and more desirable areas. Same likewise, 10 years MOP with the strictest resale and rental conditions. So where does Bayshore lie in this? We actually have Bayshore Vista and Bayshore Palms, which belongs to the Plus classification, and this was launched in 2024. They have a subsidy recovery clause of 7%. So what is the impact here? Just want to caveat, we can't predict exactly how prices will move over the next 13 to 15 years, but for illustration purpose, we will assume some of the things. So today, if I have a 14,000 income ceiling, my maximum loan based on mortgage servicing ratio is actually about 800,000 for a couple earning $7,000 each. So if we assume that a buyer is buying into 1.2 million for a plus flat 13 to 15 years down the road, that means the buyer will need to fork out more than 400,000 in order to buy the flat. And if we assume at 1.5 million dollars in terms of resale prices, we are looking at more than 700,000 of amount that is required to down pay for this flat. This is actually not that easy for the buyers. So if we extend it further as a plus flat seller, how does this impact you? So if we take 1.2 million, a 7% clawback is actually 84,000. And if it's sold at 1.5 million, it's 105,000. These are substantial clawback. And for example, if you are 25 years old, you buy a plus flat 2 years back, you are looking at selling maybe 15 years down the road, you are 40 years old. What this affects you is actually your loan tenure has shortened, and that will also translate to higher mortgage payment if you maintain your maximum loan tenure until 65 years old. So actually, the difficulty comes in this. The HDB in the area for Bayshore may not be the true support for Bayshore condos that are coming up. So what we are looking at is actually the support will need to come up from the greater eastern portion of Singapore, such as your Tampines West BTOs, your Tampines North BTOs, your Bedok South BTOs, or the resale sellers from even East Coast that are going to support your exit in the future. So in that case, is it even important to be a first mover? And is there even a first mover advantage to enter into Vela Bay? Because typically, a first mover advantage comes from entering before the area is fully developed. You're buying into something before amenities are fully built. You're buying into something before demand fully comes in. You're buying into something before the area becomes mature. And a first mover advantage only actually works if you're not already paying future prices today. So let's look at this. In terms of the land prices trending, what we have seen is actually the outside core region land prices moving towards the city fringe prices. Let's give an example. We look at it. This is Penrith in Queenstown. Developers bought in July 2024 at 1154 per square foot per plot ratio. And subsequently, the developers for Lakeside Drive in April 2025 bought in at 1132 per square foot per plot ratio. This is in Lakeside area. And as we move towards the end of 2025, we are seeing that the OCR is already hitting 1326 at the Telok Blangah Road, 1376 and 1331 at Chuang Grove area, and Bedok Rise at 1330. So if we want to compare Bayshore, the closest one will be the Bedok Rise GLS. The Bedok Rise GLS actually drew in 10 bids. And the highest bid is actually 1330 per square foot per plot ratio. And amongst the bids, you can see the next one actually only lost out by $5. So developers are also at the same time equally confident in the Bedok Rise. But if we see the land prices for OCR hitting 1,003, is this the new benchmark? And if this is the new benchmark, is it worth buying into a project with all the checklists already ticked, like good schools, you have park connectors, you have the sea-facing units? Because at the end of the day, the main belt is almost filled and there are only a couple more plots of land with sea view or pocket sea view. And in terms of the upcoming land sale, remember we talked about the Bedok South Integrated Development. This is actually coming up soon. I think by the time the recording is out, it will probably be released and we will anticipate it. Whether the land bid will be higher or lower, usually integrated developments are usually a little bit lower. But if we use Pioneer Residence, which we expect her to sell at an average of 2550, we don't think that Bedok South, the integrated development, will be lesser. In fact, this is actually more prime with more amenities in the area. Then, as a resale buyer today, what are your options? Because is there an option to actually even consider to buy new, or can I just go and buy resale? What is interesting in this belt stretching from Bayshore to Mayor area to Tanjong Rhu is actually you are looking at the quantum of relatively similar. Why do I say that? So if we go down to the nearest project to Vela Bay and also one of the newer ones, we are looking at Seaside Residences. So Seaside Residences, TOP in 2021. If we are looking at the recent transactions, let's just look at the 1259 square feet for the 3-bedroom. The second floor, 1259 square feet, sold at 2.838. And in the almost same time period, you are looking at the 21st floor, 3-bedroom, 1259 square feet, selling at 3.4 million. So in terms of the quantum range of 2.8 to 3.4, second floor to 21st floor, these are the range that people are already willing to transact at. And if you look at the 3-bedroom premium 1033 square feet, you are also looking at about 2.8 and maybe stretching up to 3.1 million. So if you're buying a higher floor, actually, you may have some savings because a buyer is already willing to pay a 21st floor in Seaside Residences for 3.4 million. Of course, there is difference. This is 1259 versus a 1033 harmonized. So if we compare the layout comparison, 1033 square feet for the Vela Bay harmonized and Seaside 1259 square feet, we bring it back, this will be about 1170 square feet if we consider it today's harmonized terms. So where are the differences? First, we see that additional space catered for the private lift lobby area. You also have additional utility and yard space. And of course, a much bigger master bedroom with a walk-in closet. So therein lies the differences of about 140 square feet. Is Vela Bay still usable and functional? You still have your 9 square meters in your common room. You still have your household shelter as well as a utility area. So at the end of the day, for the same quantum or similar pricing, you are looking at the option of a newer, slightly smaller, or a older, slightly bigger. So there are options. But what we are clear is that is actually the price range is actually in this region already. So if we compare through the entire belt, from Bayshore all the way to Tanjong Rhu, we are looking at the resale options. And these are roughly all of the bigger size. 1,200, 1,000 to 1,003, 1,003, even 1,008 in Amber Residences. And you are looking at the prices starting from 2.2 all the way to 3.78 in terms of the resale pricings. So this still remains for all the sea-facing projects looking at this kind of region and prices. Then the question is, for the 5-bedroom pricing, where we are looking at about 4.4 million to 4.5 million, therein lies a dilemma because there is an option for a landed, such as the one across the Upper East Coast Road, or if you go further out, there are also some options that may be slightly bigger. This is actually slightly different from the case of Grand Diamond, where the floor plates of the larger units are also looking at the 4 to 5 million range, because the landed in the Grand Diamond area are actually bigger, and the quantum that you're looking at for those landed are 7 to 8 million onwards. Whereas in this area, at the 4.5 to 5 million range, you have options of a landed. So at these price points, your range of options expands significantly, either from a larger older condominium or to an entry-level landed homes. For this group of buyers, ultimately, it really depends on your lifestyle, needs, priorities, and long-term plan. So for this group of buyers, if you really like to explore your options and what fits you best, feel free to drop us a message. Then now to the golden question. Buy, wait, or skip? For this project, I think it's a buy for own stay buyers that are looking at 1 to 4 bedroom units. Because with the GAFA harmonization effect, the entry prices across the belt of sea-facing developments are now relatively comparable. And at the same time, the sea-facing units continue to command a premium due to their limited supply and strong lifestyle appeal in the area. This makes it a very, very compelling option for long-term own stay. So for investors, they're actually targeting capital appreciation with an exit horizon of about 4 to 5 to 6 years. We think this is a wait. Why? Because at current pricing levels, there are actually alternative developments offering safer entry prices and lower quantum exposure. As such, waiting for a clearer entry opportunity or a better risk-reward positioning may actually be more prudent. If you're evaluating your opportunities from an investment perspective, I'm happy to walk you through our framework and how we assess entry, risk, and exit. Just drop me a message or comment below invest and I'll reach out to you. For this project, who should skip? For buyers that are actually looking at the bigger, larger units, you should skip, because once you reach this price range of about 4.5 to 5 million, you are no longer limited to comparing condos. You are also looking at the possibility of landed options, and you have a wide array of options depending on your needs. So it's important to actually properly consider before making a decision. So you should skip this project first. So for our viewers, if you are still considering your options in the market, what are the potential launches, whether you should go into a new launch or whether there's opportunity in the resale market today, I'm happy to share with you more how I think about your options based on your circumstances and requirements, because everyone has different requirements and unique set of things that they need to solve. For example, logistics and finances. So feel free to reach out to us. And if you actually enjoy our review series, do like, share, and subscribe. Bye!